My name is Melody, and today started as any other day. Olivia started the meeting with, "Before we begin this morning, I want to share that our junior client relations representative will no longer with the Vantage Group as of today. We're moving in a different direction with someone who better fits our vision." 25 people stood around the meeting room on the fourth floor. 25 people who suddenly couldn't look at me. Shock hit me. 4 years of building relationships with people who trusted our services enough to stay with us. 4 years of turning 10 struggling relationships into 100 strong ones. Please pack your belongings by the end of today. I somehow nodded and walked toward my desk without making a sound. Olivia started talking about quarterly targets as if she had not just announced my departure. 4 years earlier, I had a single goal. My father had sat me down 3 months before I applied and told me something I did not understand. He had invested in a small company years ago, a company that needed cash to survive. He owned 30% of that company. The name was the Vantage Group. He made me promise to learn everything from the bottom up without sharing our connection. To be proud of my own accomplishments, I gave him my word. He died a few years into my time at Vantage. I worked through my grief. My sister Phoebe needed surgery 6 months later, and I worked through those weeks too. Every weekend for the past 18 months, I had been at my workspace or visiting clients or preparing presentations to prove to myself that my father had been right about me, that I could do this without his name protecting me. Olivia knew none of this. Nobody at Vantage did. Olivia said I somehow gotten lucky with clients, somehow managed to keep people happy enough to stay, somehow come up with strategies that worked. Somehow was a word that Olivia used to describe my achievements. Olivia mentioned investors visiting, and I prepared all the reports needed for the visit. Hours and hours of work over the next 3 weeks. Now I was packing up to leave. Melissa came over while I was packing in tears. She wanted me to fight for my place. I had built all the success. She wanted me to talk to Arthur, the other shareholder, but I knew he didn't know me. I just needed to move on. I went home that Tuesday afternoon and sat in my apartment staring at those 2 boxes representing 4 years of my life. Phoebe came over that evening. She took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. She made tea and sat waiting for me to talk. When I finally told her, she was angry in that quiet way she gets. She also wanted me to fight for what was right, but I knew I couldn't. The investor group would come in 3 weeks. They would look at Vantage's growth and probably decide to buy it. The next day I realized I had no final paperwork. Olivia must have a reason. Probably so that the investors never realized that what she reported was not actually her work. I was in limbo, officially fired but no paperwork. Something wasn't right. I decided that as I was technically still an employee, I would attend the investor meeting that was open to all employees. The investor group included people who had worked with my father, including Sarah, had even been at my father's funeral, and knew I was at the Vantage Group. Olivia has structured the meeting around retention and growth, claiming my methods as hers. I had a choice now: break my promise to my father, or let the investors think they were making their decision on false information. A few days before the meeting, I made my decision to attend. If Sarah didn't recognize me, I knew I would just move on. When I walked in, Olivia recognized me and showed her anger, but when I pointed out I hadn't been officially terminated, she couldn't throw me out. She would have argued, but just then the investors all arrived. Sarah walked in with 2 other people from the investment group. She was talking to Arthur about quarterly projections. She looked older than I remembered from the funeral, tired, but her voice still sharp. The meeting started with Arthur giving an overview of Vantage's history and growth trajectory. Then Olivia walked them through the expansion. Sarah was listening carefully, taking notes, occasionally asking questions about implementation details, and Olivia brought up a specific client situation, the Harrison account, and how the strategy had saved the client and brought in multiple client referrals, saved Harrison, and turned them into one of our strongest advocates. That was one of my most labor-intensive client management processes. Late nights, driving long hours to meet personally and deliver on what we promised. Sarah looked at Olivia and asked her to walk her through the specific tactics used for Harrison, the week-by-week decisions, how she identified what would work. Olivia launched into a very generic, theoretic, but plausible description of what happened. Sarah nodded slowly. Then, Sarah looked away from Olivia and scanned the room. Her eyes moved around the room and landed on me and stopped moving. I saw recognition hit her. Her expression changed. She leaned forward slightly in her chair as if she needed to make sure she was seeing correctly. She stared at me for what felt like a long time, but was probably only a few seconds. Olivia was still talking when Sarah raised her hand. Olivia stopped mid-sentence. "Do you have a question?" Sarah's voice came out quiet, but everyone heard it anyway. She pointed to me and asked me to come to front. The room went still. Olivia's face lost color. Arthur looked confused. Melissa grabbed the chair in front of her. I stood up on legs that felt like they might give out and walked to the front. Every step felt like it took an hour. Sarah stood up when I reached her. She looked at my face and said, "You're Mark's daughter." I nodded. Yes, my father was Mark. Sarah turned to Arthur. "Did you know Mark had a daughter working here?" He said he didn't. He had no idea Mark had a daughter or that anyone at the company was related to him. She asked Olivia, who also said no. Nobody knew. Sarah sat back down. She reached into the bag she had brought and pulled out a worn notebook. Sarah opened it to a page marked with a small tab. She started reading out loud. October 15th. Melody saved the Harrison situation. They were ready to cancel. She drove out to them every other week for months, built trust back piece by piece. I'm watching her prove she can do this without anyone knowing I am connected. She is better at this than I ever was. She flipped to another entry. January 10th. Melody brought in 3 new relationships from Western region. She identified the opportunity and pursued it. Olivia takes credit in reports to investors, but I know the truth. I see the real numbers. I see what my daughter actually does. Sarah read more entries, each one documenting something I had done, each one dated, each one describing achievements that Olivia had just finished claiming as her own work. My father had been watching and documenting. Arthur was shocked. Olivia went white. Sarah closed the notebook. She looked at Arthur. Mark wrote these entries right up until he died. He tracked his daughter's progress because he wanted to know if his investment in this company was being built on real foundations. Every strategy this woman just presented as her own work is documented in here as Melody's. Dates, details, results, everything. One of the other investors spoke up, a man named Eric something. I had not caught his last name during introductions. "So, you are telling us the growth we are looking at came from someone sitting in the back row, not from the director presenting to us?" Sarah nodded. "That is exactly what I am telling you. Mark was very clear in these entries. He watched the internal reports. He saw who did what. He documented it because he wanted proof that his daughter was earning her place without his help. He never told her he was tracking this." Arthur said, "Melody, I had no idea. If I had known you were Mark's daughter, I would have." He stopped. "Would have what?" "Treated you differently, given you opportunities you earned anyway." He did not finish the sentence because there was no good way to finish it. Olivia tried to speak. "Sarah, I can explain. These strategies were team efforts. Melody contributed certainly, but the overall vision and implementation direction came from my leadership framework." And Sarah cut her off with a look. "Do not insult me. I've been evaluating businesses for 30 years. I know the difference between leadership and theft. You stood here for 30 minutes claiming the work is yours. You announced 3 weeks ago that this woman was being let go, and you did it in front of her colleagues without even processing proper paperwork. That tells me everything I need to know about you. Sarah turned to Arthur. We are still interested in acquiring Vantage, but our terms just changed. We are not buying this company to let it continue operating the way it has been. We are restructuring. Arthur looked relieved and terrified at the same time. Whatever you need, we can work with any structure you want to implement. Sarah looked at me. We want Melody as Director of Client Operations. Every relationship, every strategy, every decision about how this company interacts with the people who pay for your services. She reports directly to our investment group. That was not what I had expected. I had thought maybe Sarah would expose the truth. Maybe she would recommend they not buy Vantage. Maybe she would tell Arthur he needed to make changes. But putting me in charge, that was something different entirely. What about Olivia? Arthur's voice came out small. What happens with her role? Sarah did not look at Olivia when she answered. Olivia reports to Melody now. She remains employed here to assist with whatever Melody needs. Olivia's face crumpled briefly. Then she pulled it into a blank expression that looked like it hurt to maintain, but she did not argue. She did not protest. What could she say that would not make everything worse? The meeting continued about purchase terms and transition timelines and operational adjustments. People asked questions. Arthur answered some of them. Sarah answered others. I sat, trying to process what had just happened. My father had documented my work. He had watched me for 4 years, proving I could do this without his name. And then he had died before seeing where it would lead, before knowing whether his investment in me and his investment in Vantage would both pay off the way he had hoped. Now his notebook had become the weapon that gave me power I had not asked for. After the meeting ended, Sarah came over and sat down next to me. Your father loved you very much. He talked about you constantly, how smart you were, how hard you worked, how you insisted on earning everything yourself. He was so proud of that stubbornness, even though it frustrated him sometimes that you would not let him help you. Why did you keep his notebook? I asked. He gave it to me before he died, when he was getting sicker. Said if anything ever happened with Vantage and you were there, I should have proof of what you built. I think part of him knew something like this might happen, that people would try to take credit for your work. He wanted to make sure you had protection even after he was gone. I did not know what to say to that. My father had protected me from beyond his death. The acquisition will take about 60 days to finalize. Then you start your new position. I know this is not what you expected today, but your father believed you could run this company if given the opportunity. Now you have that chance. What you do with it is up to you. She left me sitting there with those words hanging in the air around me. 60 days later, I started as Director of Client Operations, reporting directly to the investment group. My new workspace was much larger than my old one. I had authority over 20 people, including Olivia. I had final say on strategy and implementation and relationship management, everything I'd done for 4 years. Olivia reported to me. I wasn't cruel, and I didn't humiliate her or make her life miserable. I did my job and expected her to do hers, but I knew what it cost her. Having to ask permission from someone she had tried to erase, having to watch someone she had dismissed become her supervisor, having to sit in meetings where her ideas were questioned while mine were implemented. That was the punishment. Not cruelty, just reality. 6 months later, Olivia resigned. She couldn't stay where she had tried to steal. I accepted her resignation and wished her well. In those same 6 months, I implemented changes that took the company from strength to strength, increasing the value significantly. I wonder if the end result was worth breaking my promise to my father. I think it was, but I still doubt it sometimes. Thanks for listening to my story and staying to the end. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment telling me what you think. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, hit that subscribe button. Stories about real people facing impossible situations and finding ways through.